This video is about skiving leather. It explains why we skive leather and then demonstrates how leather skiving is performed using a paring knife and a leather paring device. Skiving leather means partially reducing the thickness of leather. If the leather is thinned across the entire surface, this is known as splitting leather. This is done using a machine. Leather is made up of multiple layers. The papillary layer is the layer facing the hair side. It has a characteristic structure that differs depending on the type of animal. This side is called the grain side. The flesh side lies opposite the grain side. It forms part of the reticular layer and is thinned during leather skiving. Thinning the leather on the flesh side makes it more supple and malleable. This is especially important in the fold areas of a book cover to ensure that it opens well. Bands can be worked more easily. And it is easier to cover book corners. Before skiving leather, you should sharpen your paring knife. You can find out how to do this in the following video. You will need a firm level surface for leather skiving. Traditionally, a lithography stone is used, but other smooth stone or glass worktops are also suitable. The base should be placed at the edge of the table on a non-slip surface, such as a silicone or rubber mat. The piece of leather can be rubbed once before skiving. This will make the fibers more supple to reduce cutting resistance. The leather is then skived on the flesh side in the respective areas. There are various ways to hold the leather knife as you work. However, it is important to ensure that the blade always moves away from the body. Never place your hands in front of the blade. Cuttings should always be removed immediately so they do not make their way underneath the piece of leather you are working on. Even small particles can cause unevenness, which may result in holes being cut in the leather. If the knife stops gliding effortlessly through the leather, the piece of leather will stretch and may tear. In this case, the blade should be resharpened on the lithography stone or using a leather strop. Beginners should practice handling their leather knife and try out different blade shapes. Leather can be skived to a uniform thickness using a paring device. This is very helpful for narrow strips of leather, for example. Secure the leather paring device to a tabletop using an adjustable screw. To insert a skiving blade, open the spacer on the corresponding wheel to about 5 mm wide. Use the blade lifter handle. Unscrew the blade holder using the appropriate screwdriver and remove it. Carefully remove a fresh blade from its packaging and insert it into the holder. Then replace the blade holder and screw it into place. Lower the blade lifter. Insert the piece of leather with the flesh side facing up. Tighten the spacer until the blade is pressing lightly into the leather. Then pull the piece of leather through under the blade. During this process, the right hand pulls on one end and the left hand holds the piece of leather slightly downward. It is best to reduce the thickness in multiple small steps. If you remove too much leather at a time, there is a risk that tearing may occur. Leather straps should be brushed away immediately with a brush or blown away. Never wipe them away with the fingers, as there is a risk of cuts. The blade can also be positioned at an angle which tapers its transition across the leather. This makes it possible to thin out the fold points for the book cover. Special lifting rollers can be used to skive out narrow sections within the piece of leather. These are available in various widths. They can be exchanged easily and can be used to skive out narrow seam areas for the spine. Hard transitions in the leather can be reworked using a paring knife. Alternatively, you can use sandpaper to do this. To check that the transitions are smooth, the piece of leather is turned so that the grain side is facing up and palpated with the fingers. Leather skiving reduces the thickness of the leather, making it more flexible and easier to work with. This is especially important for the seam areas and fold points of book covers. Skiving can be performed manually or using a leather paring device. This takes a lot of practice and patience.